What is going on? Welcome to another episode of the Fit Foodie Podcast, a place for plant-based foodies, vegans that want to lose weight, feel great, and elevate their lives. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. In today's episode, we're chatting about the number one thing you should start tracking if you want to begin your weight loss journey. And if you want to do it successfully, begin with this one thing, especially if you've never tracked before and it is completely new to you. And just the thought of it sounds overwhelming and like, I don't want to do this tracking. I got to track calories. Well, it's not calories for starters. Let's get rid of the notion. Calories do matter. They're important. But if you're a beginner and you've never tracked anything before and you don't like the idea of tracking, begin with this one simple thing that must be tracked. And I will give you strategies on how to track it easily so that there's no overwhelm and it becomes automatic, easy for you to do. And once you got this down, just like learning anything new, it takes practice, but once you have it down, it becomes so much easier to then move on to the next step and eventually put the pieces together so that you can be successful, right? Reach your weight loss goal and more importantly, maintain that weight loss that you achieved and maintain it for good and even go further in your fitness goals, right? Beyond the weight loss goal, beyond the fat loss is, maybe build muscle, maintain that physique that you've reached and go from even a higher level of fitness, right? An improved mental attitude, an improved mind state. And this is what this episode and this podcast is all about, really, is elevating your lives, not just through fitness, but through your mentality and your mindset and be able to do this and be successful so that you experience success in other areas of your life as well, beyond fitness, right? Because fitness is hard and it's something that many people attempt, but unfortunately, many people do not succeed. And I don't want you to be one of those statistics. If you're serious about your fat loss and your weight loss and you want to take it serious and reach that goal that you've been working for, you'll be doing what many people attempted and have quit, fallen off the wagon, and just said, "Screw it, I'm just, gonna struggle and yo-yo forever," right? And you don't want to be that person. Being that successful dieter, the one who reached their goal, maintained their physique, and went even further with your weight loss goals, you reach that higher level of someone who succeeded in something that many people don't succeed in. And I'm gonna give you the strategy to begin. If you've never done this before and you're new to a weight loss journey, or you've tried before and you failed and you've yo-yoed back and forth and it hasn't been something that's worked for you, I'm going to give you the strategy to make it work and begin with this one thing. So first off, guys, for beginners, to start us off, I did want to chat about the one of the main things that we've struggled before. I know I have in my weight loss journey. You've probably experienced this before if you're listening to this, or maybe you're new to the whole game and it'll be like a warning for you. Is one of the main reasons we struggle as vegans, and even if you're not vegan and you follow any kind of diet, really the idea of tracking calories, right? Number one is tracking calories. We struggle with the idea of, well, what do I track? How do I track it? How do I know how many calories I'm supposed to eat? What exactly am I supposed to be doing in order to see successful weight loss? And I don't want to track calories. It's overwhelming, right? We don't want to do that. And oftentimes we go towards the idea that that's the only way to do it. We maybe go for it for a week, we track our calories, and it just becomes too overwhelming. And we decide, you know what, screw it. This is too hard. I couldn't do it. Right. And another reason, especially with vegans, right? Us vegans who are more health conscious, well, not just vegans, but typically we tend to be more health conscious than the standard American dieters who just are eating, not really a health conscious diet, but we focus just solely on eating healthy, right? On being healthy. And that often leads to not really knowing how much we're eating. Yeah, we're eating healthy. And I know this from experience because for many years I followed a mostly raw vegan diet where I focus on a lot of fruit, which I absolutely love, a lot of greens and salads, but I also wasn't tracking how much I was eating, like all the homemade dressings I was making with cashews and all that on my salad. How much was that actually providing? Was I just creating calorie bombs? And how much was I actually eating? Even though these were considered healthy foods, I was still overeating. And I know that because for years I was maintaining a skinny fat look, right? Where I looked lean, but really I was overweight, from my body type, and you could see it in my body, right? Not much muscle definition, carrying a lot of excess body fat, especially in my midsection, kind of hovering around the high teens and the 20% body fat levels. And it just because even though I was eating healthy, I didn't know really how much of that food I was eating. And just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's automatically healthy too, right? Oftentimes we see things in the stores that are, packaged or whatnot, and we think that they're healthy because they're vegan, and that might not always be the case, right? So just focusing on eating healthy is not the game plan for reaching a fitness goal, a weight loss goal. We want to make sure that we're making a better use of our time, right? And um, the one thing, let's get right into it, guys. The one thing that we need to be tracking first, especially if you've never tracked before, is your protein. And this is the case, guys, for any diet, but especially on a vegan plant-based diet where people think, and it's a myth, it's not really the case, where it could be challenging, or how do you get your protein? Where do you get your protein on a vegan diet? I'm going to share actually some of the great sources that you can use and incorporate into your diet a little later in this episode. But begin here. Begin with tracking your protein, guys. And if you could understand that, first of all, that protein is a crucial macronutrient. When I say macronutrient, we typically call them macros, right? We're talking about carbs, fats, and proteins, right? All essential, all important. But when it comes to your body composition and weight loss goals, protein is highly, highly important. And start here because it does matter for the way your body looks, right? And also being satiated when you're on a weight loss journey. Protein has a more satiating effect than carbs and fats. You'll feel fuller for longer, essentially, is what that means. So track your protein first. And we do that by having a certain targets to go for. So I'm going to give you a couple game plan and strategy action steps that you can do. So you want to begin with tracking your protein. When you get good with that and you understand how much protein you're supposed to be eating for your body type, and you got it down so that now it becomes easy, you don't even have to think twice about it, and you can then move on to the next layer of what to incorporate, what to track, what to monitor, and then you start to put these pieces together, and over time they become automatic. If you've never tracked before and I just throw at you like, hey, you need to track this and that and this and all these different factors, it just becomes overwhelming, and you don't do it. Or someone who tries it and is really good at it maybe is successful for a bit, but then they fall off because it's too much, right? Begin with protein, and once you are good at that, you can then bring in these other pieces that I'm not even going to mention in this episode because, again, I don't want to overwhelm you. So, right. So start with protein. So action steps. I want to make this a short, quick, to the point, actionable episode. What you can do to um, start tracking your protein successfully and start your weight loss journey on the right foot, right? So number one, let's begin with primary proteins, right? You want to include on a vegan plant-based diet is centering your meals around primary proteins, right? And these are things like the primary protein. First of all, it's a myth that a lot of plant foods don't contain protein. They essentially all contain proteins, but you have a category of primary plant-based proteins, and these are your tofu, tempeh, seitan, protein powder. There's a lot of high quality protein powders out there. um Edamame. Let's just kind of keep it simple and keep it there. There's also other like vegan meat alternatives which are high quality, but let's keep it with the fundamental things that we are readily available in stores, right? Tofu, tempeh, seitan, protein powder, edamame too. These are called primary proteins. Basing your meals, your breakfast, lunch, dinners, and snacks around these primary proteins to ensure that you're getting an adequate amount of protein for your body type ensures that you are receiving the protein goal that you're going for that day. We'll talk about the protein target in the next step, right? So basing your meals around primary protein. So this might mean, for example, in your breakfast, for example, if you're doing oatmeal, you might cook up your oatmeal like normal, sweeten up with some stevia, top it with some blueberries, but in there you included a scoop of vanilla protein. So it becomes it actually tastes better in my opinion, right? It gives it more flavor, but now you boosted the protein. The oats provide protein, right? Maybe if you add some chia seeds, flax seeds, and hemp seeds, you also boosted the protein with those foods as well. Healthy foods. They also contain protein, but they're not considered primary proteins, whereas the protein powder is mostly protein, right? And so now you created a meal that's easily 20, 30, or more grams of protein, right? For example, in a lunch, my favorite recently has been a veggie tofu stir fry. I just whip it up in 10 minutes. I cube up some tofu. I have a bag of veggie stir fry, frozen veggies, huge bag from Costco that I throw in a pan with the tofu, season it up, add some greens in there, maybe some spinach, and I have a nutrient dense, protein rich lunch because the tofu was the primary protein that I added in there. And don't forget the veggies and all these little things that I added are complementary protein sources, which even boost the protein even further. But base your meals around protein, right? For dinner, I'm having as an example, this week I'm having a a rice bowl, right? A little plate of rice. On top of it, I just cook up some veggies and a different protein source. Could be more tofu, could be lately I've been enjoying daring vegan chicken, right? But ultimately, I'm making sure that I'm basing my meals around primary proteins. So start with primary proteins first and build your meals around that, right? Now, we want to talk the next action step that you can do in tracking your protein first is understanding how much you should be getting, right? If you are not like considered, I guess, overly obese, because the recommendations are a little different for anyone who's considered overly obese. But if you're, overweight, maybe you have 20 to 30 pounds to lose, a lot of belly fat, maybe in the hips and legs, and you could stand to lose some fat there, then the general recommendations are think of your ideal goal weight. So let's say you're 160 pounds and your goal is to get to 145 as an example, right? So your goal is 145 pounds. You want to lose 15 pounds, or maybe it's more, right? But as an example, let's just say 145. What you can do is take your goal weight and simply aim to get 1 gram per pound of that number. So if your goal weight is 145 pounds and you're looking to get 145 grams of protein, you could even go with your current body weight. Let's say you weighed 160. You could even go with 1 gram per one 1 gram per pound of your current weight, which is 160. So you would be getting 160 grams of protein. Now, this is very easy to do when you base your meals around primary proteins that I mentioned in the previous action step, right? Now, let's just say you went for your goal body weight. So your goal is to get 145 grams of protein every day. Now, within that, you don't have to be perfect. I usually go for a range, something like within 5% of that number, or to keep it simple, above or below 10 grams. So if your goal is 145 a day, if you are getting 135 to 155 grams on any given day, then you are well within your range and you are good, right? And you do that consistently over time. You start building the habit of getting enough protein and tracking it. Eventually, you can then like I said, bring on these other layers which allow you to see success in your weight loss journey, right? And be able to reach that weight loss goal while maintaining your muscle mass, while burning the fat and reaching that goal, right? So how do we track? Let's say your goal was 145, right? And you want to hit a range between 135 and 155. That's your goal, right? To be within that range. Simple tracking app like MyFitnessPal, right? Let's just use MyFitnessPal as an example. Chronometer is another great app, another free one you can use. But a very well-known one is MyFitnessPal. We can just use MyFitnessPal, right? So input, let's say you plan your meals for a given week, right? I like to do Saturday morning where I plan my meals for the following week, and then on Saturday, I get my groceries. And then on Sunday, I start the meals for the following week. And I have the same breakfast, lunch, and dinner for that following week so that it's easy. It's foods that I enjoy. And then if I want to change it up, I simply continue the same meals, or I simply change one of the meals and continue the meals that I enjoyed. Some weeks I really enjoy the meal, so I do it for like 2 weeks or more. Other weeks I change up maybe just one of the meals and just play around like that. But let's take as an example, you're doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner in MyFitnessPal, beginning with the primary proteins, protein powder, tofu, tempeh, seitan, inputting those and the amounts you're gonna use in each meal and then surrounding it with other things like, for example, I mentioned oatmeal, I mentioned a veggie stir fry, I mentioned a rice bowl. Building your meals in MyFitnessPal and ensuring that you're adding the adequate amount of ingredients to not only make it a healthy, nutrient dense meal, but also making sure you're within that 135 to 155 grams, right? And you only have to do this once. If you're having the same meals throughout the week, you just spend a little bit of time on Saturday before you grocery shop planning out your meals and putting it into MyFitnessPal to make sure you hit your protein, and that's it. You have that same amount of food every day for that week, and you know you're hitting your protein goals every single day. Now, with that said, this doesn't mean hit your protein and then have as much. Ideally, you don't want to be having as much of whatever else you want. Like I hit my protein, I could have anything else I want, and put yourself in this huge calorie surplus where you're going to end up gaining weight. You still want to be mindful around building, good, nice portion meals, right? The next step obviously would be to bring in carbs and fats into the picture. So you know how much rice to put, how much veggies to put, how much oatmeal to put. But for now, just focus on the protein. Get good at incorporating protein-rich meals, tracking them on a weekly basis. You only have to input it into your tracker once and just repeat. And then that's it, right? That's it. So as an example, my protein goal right now is 155 grams. I know that if I'm within 145 to 165, I am good. And my meals right now, I'm having smoothie bowl, veggie stir fry, and then a rice bowl for dinner. And then for snack, I have a fig with some Greek yogurt, a vegan Greek yogurt, and some pumpkin seeds. All protein rich foods, nutrient dense foods, and they meet my protein goal, right? But start with protein, guys. Use these steps. So to recap, guys, your three action steps are: number one, build a list of primary proteins that you want to try: tofu, tempeh, seitan, protein powder, edamame. Number two, calculate your target. Decide how much weight you want to lose, reasonable amount. Let's say, you want to lose 10, 15, 20 pounds. Use your goal weight and get that many grams of protein. That's your target. And then be within 10 above or 10 below of that number. And thirdly, use a tracking tool like MyFitnessPal to input your meals that you're going to have to ensure you're hitting that target, and then rinse and repeat, guys. That's it. So hopefully you found this helpful, guys. If you have any questions or still wondering about how to get this dialed in so that you can start tracking your protein and getting this first initial step on the right track to be able to reach your weight loss goal, just reach out to me, guys. You can find me on Instagram. My tag is at Luis_Armendrano. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have on dialing this in, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next episode. Peace, love, and enjoy your day.